G'day everyone. In this tutorial video today, we're going to be looking at a dynamic transition effect that allows you to bring in content from the sides of your show without taking any of the focus away from your main production. Just like this. This is a handy effect for adding additional content such as sponsors, promotions, or even title content. It allows you to dynamically add production elements without ever switching from your main content. This content surrounding your main shot here and here can be any input in Vmix. So you could use images, videos, or even something like a GT titles. Now I've heard this described as different things such as a squeeze or a push, and I'm sure there are proper industry terms for it, but I've gone in another direction. As this uses the merge transition in Vmix and is squeezing the content into the corner, I'm calling it the squurge effect. Mainly because I think it's funny and I kind of look forward to people referring to it in support emails as the squurge effect. So here's how we used it in the Vmix Funtime live show last month. Now we have our main studio shot and then we've added the corporate sponsors in from the side, and then we transition back to the main studio shot. So this is pretty much how we had it set up for our live show. So as you can see here, I have two different inputs, and they're input multi-views that have multiple layers on them. So both of those contain the main studio shot and the ad, but they've both been zoomed out to different levels. So when I switch between them, it's going to zoom in and zoom out of that content. So the merge transition in Vmix allows you to seamlessly move between those two. All right, so now I'm just going to quickly go ahead and remove all of this stuff, and I'm going to show you how to set it up from scratch. So I've gotten rid of all of the inputs that were involving the squurge effect. So now we've just got our basic Vmix setup. So I have my background image here, I've got my Panasonic camera, and then I've combined them in an input multi-view, as you can see here for this studio shot. So I have the background and the Panasonic camera there. So this is my main shot that I want to use as a part of my merge to the corner and then merge back again. So and I'm going to show you how to set that up. So what I want to do is create a blank input so I can create a multi-view with all of these different layers zoomed in and zoomed out. So I'm just going to go here and just rename this to squurge, as you do. We'll make this squurge ad, because this is the first thing that we're going to do is going to inset this studio shot. So you could also double click it and then go that way, but we can click the cog icon to go to the settings. Now next what we want to do is go to the multi-view tab. I'm going to select this third layer here, and I'm going to select the studio shot. Then I'm going to go to the position section, click that, and then I'm going to go and position this where I want it. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we're making this 80%. So we're going to move this 20% to the corner, and that will give us 20% horizontally and vertically to add additional content. So in order to do this, I'm going to set the zoom here at 0.8, and then I'm just going to shift this across 0.2 and 0.2 so it lines up with the corner. Now there is a little bit of maths involved when zooming in and zooming out to all of these different positions, and if you wait a little bit later in this video, I'm going to show you the formula in order to create these different percentages to work out if you wanted to do a different percentage like 70 or 60%. It'll go through some maths a little bit later on, so for those that want to do that, stay tuned for a little bit longer, and it'll also be in the description as well. Alright, so now we have this shot here. Now this will allow us to see how much content we have to work with on the sides. So now we have this 20% horizontal and vertical area on the sides to work with. Now what we're going to do now is create the reverse of this. So we're going to create the full screen merge for this particular input. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this little cog icon and click create virtual input. Now that's going to duplicate the input and allow us to go through and make some changes to the zoom so we can make this full screen. So what I'm going to do is just go to the settings again, and then from this position tab here, I'm going to select main. So I'm going to be zooming in the overall input. So make sure that when you go to position, you go to main. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom this out. So again, there's a particular formula that you need to follow. This is for 80%, but there will be some maths later on. So for those people that want to learn some maths, that will be available a bit later on. So I've got 1.25, and then for these ones, I've set these at negative 0.25. Now, as you can see, that's brought this particular one full screen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also just going to quickly rename this so I don't forget. So this is now Squurge full screen. So now we have our ad, and then we have our full screen here. So as you can see, the full screen here, so we'll switch to this one. And then, so this is my studio shot here on the left and my Squurge full screen on the right. And as you can see, they are totally identical. So I'm switching between them and they're completely identical. So that means that I can now use this full screen shot. And if I transition between the merge effect and the normal shot, you won't notice any differences. So what I'm going to do now is bring the Squurge ad into the preview and use the merge transition to bring those across. Now, as you can see, I now have the ability to move in and move out with the content on the vertical and horizontal axis. All right, so now we have this. What are we going to put in there? Well, how do we work out what we're going to put in this content area here? Now, you can work it out yourself. Like you can work out, say we're using a 1920 by 1080 production here. You just need to work out 20% horizontal and vertical. And an easy way to do it though is to create a snapshot down here of the output. And then I can go ahead and snapshot that and put that into something like Photoshop, which is what I'm going to do right now. So we're going to jump over to Photoshop and show you how to use it. Okay, so now I've exported my screenshot from Vmix. I brought it into Photoshop and it gives me a good idea of what I've got to work with. So because we've shrunk our image or video here by 20%, we have 20% to work with horizontally and vertically. So if you've got a 1920 by 1080 image, it means you've got 384 and 216 to work with on either side, and including the length, obviously, so 1920 by 1080. So you've got that content to work with. So what I've gone and done is I've separated layers here. So as you can see here, I've got my, that's my image gone. So this is the content that I've got to work with. And then I'm going to export this image without the screenshot in here. I'm just going to leave it blank. So now I'm going to create the content here, and then I'm going to import that back into Vmix. All right, so now I've got my image, I can export it and then bring it into Vmix. All right, so now I have my side element. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and bring that into Vmix. So I can drag and drop that in, or I can add input and then bring it in that way. Now, as we mentioned before, you could use an image file, you could use videos, you could use GT titles, you could use whatever you want to fill this area on the side here. Now, all I need to do is go back into my Squurge ad area, go to the multi-view and then just put in the ad like so. So that's ready to go. And then for the other one, I just need to go into the full screen version and add that in here as well. So now I have both of my elements, and when I zoom, when I use the merge here, as you can see, it's going to merge in and out like so. So that's how you can set up that squeeze merge effect in Vmix. That was for 80% zoom. And now we're going to go in and kind of go over the maths on how to set it up for different percentages. Okay, now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the Vmix tutorials, the maths part. So you'll need to go to the first input where we've got the inset layer, and then set the zoom for that layer to whatever size you want. So 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. And then go to the pan and tilt and do 1 minus that zoom. Then for the duplicated input that we created for the full screen, you need to go to the main layer and set the zoom there to 1 divided by the zoom. And then the pan and tilt needs to be 1 minus 1 divided by zoom. So the zoom is what we set for that first input. Okay, so here is an example. For the first input, let's set the zoom to 0.8. So then the pan and tilt, we go 1 minus 0.8. So we set the pan and tilt to 0.2. Then for the second input, the full screen one, we go to the main layer and we do 1 divided by 0.8, which equals 1.25. Then we go to the pan and tilt and do 1 minus 1 divided by 0.8, which is 1 minus 1.25, and that equals negative 0.25. So I'm going to include this formula in the description as well if you want to follow along, or if you get totally stuck, feel free to send us an email. Alright, so that's how you set up that squeeze merge effect in Vmix. If you do have any questions about this or about Vmix in general, please send us through an email via the support page on vmix.com, and that way we can answer your questions. With YouTube comments, it's very difficult to get information about what you're doing, so feel free to send us an email through our website. So thanks for watching, and we'll stream you later.
Thanks for watching. Click to watch another exciting Vmix video or head to vmix.com for a free 60-day trial. See you later.